types of different forms together. Now, we continue our coverage of language resource provision celebration with the team behind a bilingual comic series called Ole Ainga, or The Family in the Samoan language. And joining me in studio today is, look him up, is the one and only Michel Mulipola and Lafitaga Nafanuatele, Lafitaga, Mafaufau. They are the co-creators behind this series, so we can learn a little bit more about all of it, the stories, how it all came about, so that we can, hopefully, more resources we can provide our kids, the better. And welcome to the show.
Yeah, whaafilua i atu me le nganga whaalualo I lo sunga I le taetai ane nei polkalame tau ili. Ia me se fo'i le whaafonga mai o le paia ma le malu a Samoa ma le Pasifika le nei tae au. Mahalo le soifua maua ma le langi ma.
Mahalo. Let us start with this. Whenever islanders get together, we meet one another that we're not familiar or acquainted with. We always start with our whakapapa. Starting with you, Lafitaga Nafanua, if you can tell us a little bit about yourself. You are both a well-run known, but this program, whenever we tune in every day, there's a new baby born. And as a new baby is born, a new listener is born. So for the sake of those who have been hiding under rocks for many years, please let us start a little bit about yourselves and what you currently do.
Thank you. So it is lovely to be here. As you mentioned, we are co-creators of the comic series, Ole Ainga Samoa. But prior to this, I was teaching for a number of years, both in Samoa and here in New Zealand, teaching Samoan and English. And then I moved into a role at NZQA, where I've been working in the Pacific team. And most recently, I have joined the Ministry for Pacific Peoples as the manager of the Pacific Languages Unit.
Nice. Cool.
So my name's Michel Mulipola. What don't I do? I'm a comic book artist, professional wrestler, esports athlete, movie star, Duffy Books and Homes, role model, and urban legend of Māngere. I'm always privileged to be here in the PMN offices to share my story, and share, recently our work on Ole Ainga Samoa, the first ever, I guess, Samoan language comic book.
My apologies, I pronounced your name because of my English limitation. I don't know, but I just see your name, so I said Michel. But you are Michel.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit of the history of the name again. You were saying before that.
It's a French name, kind of pronounced Italian. From what I remember, the story goes is that the week before I was born, there was a Kiwis versus France rugby league test, and whoever scored the first try was who I was going to be named after. And the Frenchman Michel, I can't remember the last name, scored the try. And my mum, who was familiar with both French and Italian languages, which she learned at AGS, she decided to go with the Italian pronunciation because it was less feminine, I guess. Yeah.
Can I just say it's a very Samoan name?
Totally.
So French name pronounced Italian, full Samoan. Go figure.
Third world intervention in all the different forms. And shout out to Māngere. I just moved to Māngere. I ended up on a road called Wickman Way. So people who don't know Māngere, they know the bakery.
Yeah, some people may recognize me from the Bakery Runs episodes. My mate and I, Tim, we do like a social media
you guys
video.
Put it online, don't you?
Yeah, and we go around bakeries judging their pies, and I was a guest for the Wickman Way episode because I'm a Wickman Way guy. I'm a Windmill Bakery guy.
My New Year resolution is to not be the Windmill Bakery guy. I did it all in a month, and I said I got here conquered. Now, look, let's get into Ole Ainga. Now, you are both tagged as the co-creators, but I want to know, because it's the ngangana, or the language, the script itself. Now, that's your role, Nafanuatele, and then bringing it into vision is the work of Michel. Tell us about how you both came together, and what sort of was this over a bottle of Happy Juice or pies? How did it become the story? Then I thought, all right, you tell me what you do. I'm going to tell the story. You're going to enlighten us, please.
Okay, well, When I left teaching in 2019, I started, still with the passion of language, especially with our Ngangana Samoa. I started teaching Samoan language in the community. And that is how Michel and I met. He was one of my students and has been for the last couple of years. And as our classes have grown, we have offered classes online. And there were a lot of requests coming through from parents wanting to know if we would run classes for children, because our classes are mostly for adults. But unfortunately, because I'm the only tutor with the support of my team, we weren't able to offer that. But we did discuss as a team what is a way that we could still respond and provide some kind of support and resource for young people who are wanting to engage, but also a way that parents and their children can engage with the language. And so comics has been something that I've always enjoyed, because my brothers, growing up, my brothers always read comics, and so I too was really keen on and enjoyed reading comics. And I'd always wanted to create a comic in Samoan language. And just, with the blessing and the opportunity of having Michel in my class, I discussed with him the idea of creating this comic for young people. And that's how Ole Ainga Samoa was created. We really wanted to make it something that was intentional, in that it helps to unpack Samoan life, Samoa, from a young person's perspective, but also being able to tell our stories as our people, and for our children and young people to see themselves in these stories. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, no, Nafanuatele kind of, explained it pretty much as a student in her class, and as a award-winning comic book artist. She floated the idea, and funnily enough, I had been thinking about some kind of idea involving comics and the Samoan language for a while, but never really knew how to approach it. And so the collaboration between Nafanuatele and I just seemed like a natural fit, and so like her knowledge and her experience with the Samoan language would help fill in a lot of those gaps that I had in terms of trying to bring a Samoan language comic to fruition. And so it's been really great, and not only have I been learning while creating the comic, learning a lot of the Fat Samoa stuff in the Samoan language. Also, I get to also teach Nafanuatele a little bit about the comic book art form and how that works, because a lot of people don't really truly understand it beyond its surface elements. So it's been this really great kind of synergy between Nafanuatele and I in terms of both teaching and learning from each other.
I mean, I always reminded of, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Tim Horton. So Tim Horton is Canada's version of Starbucks. Right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
So it doesn't matter what role you're hired in. You could be the CEO, but you have to start from the floor. And the whole reason being is that by the time the CEO gets to his seat or her seat, they understand what the tilt person goes to, the janitor, so that when he's creating, he's not creating out of what he knows.
Yeah.
He's creating, keeping in mind of what other people's role is in terms of that. So hearing what you guys are doing, the journeying together, understanding, so that I guess when you're writing Nafanuatele, you kind of understand how Michel can pen this, or when you're doing it, are there any particular language that goes with this sort of picture? So it's the way of today. And I remember reading an article, Nafanuatele, where you spoke of the kind of Samoan that you teach. It's the Samoan that makes sense to the diaspora. And so when I read some of the dialogue in the script, I see that it's the representation of the Samoan for those who are here in Aotearoa. Because here's the thing, right? So one of the craziest things about Pacific Islanders, we leave home for a better life here, and then we come here and we create the hardship bar that got us to leave home in the first place. Like, wait, so you came here for a better opportunity, and then you duplicate the village scene. Nothing wrong with that, but remember, 8 hours at home, 55 hours outside of the house. Mm-hmm. For you two, when you came together, what was the main core purpose in terms, because you don't just do this and then, that's it. What was the full vision of why you decided to make it bilingual not just a Samoan, but why it was needed?
It's always been, we've always had an intentional focus. If we're going to do something, it has to be of some use and value, but it also has to have some meaning for those who we're creating resources, running the classes, making comics, and we both share the same idea. And I'm supported by a really great team in terms of our Nafanua communication and culture team. And so for us, creating this resource, as you already mentioned, we wanted to create stories that young people could relate to, that are relevant to their lives. Growing up, we know that everybody has different experiences as a Samoan or as a Pacific person, and those will depend on where you're living, what your back, how your family are. But there are some fundamental things about our lives that are going to be, quite similar, and so we wanted to really capture that in terms of letting young people see that there are some things that we will question in our lives as we're growing up, but we wanted to show the stories and show out those experiences in a way that young people can sort of see, oh, it's not just me going through this experience, whether it's positive or negative, but it's also something that others, share. I remember growing up, and I used to complain or get upset when people would turn up at the last minute, suddenly on our doorstep, and all of a sudden we had to go and, make the iputi or a cup of tea, host these guests. And so I thought that was, when you're growing up, you think that's your life and, it's not that great or, it's difficult. But through these stories, and when you share your experiences with others, you realize it's actually the same for everyone. But understanding that there's a real purpose behind that, and everybody has a role to play. Like you mentioned with the story with the Tom Horn, everybody has a role to play in your life and your family and in our culture. And it's kind of making it a simple way for our young people to understand that.
So in reality, Ole Ainga is part of your therapy? Yeah?
Definitely part of,
You have
as
some
you will
issues?
see in the stories, yes,
On
there are
your
some
shoulder
issues
that you
there.
are unleashing.
No, totally value and love our culture. Yeah.
Michel, for you, look, most people that are listening in aren't familiar that you work on a lot of the comics that they've seen in the movies, but they may not know of. Can we quickly just name some of the international movies that we've seen recently?
Well,
throw it out there, man.
yeah.
Throw it out there.
Well, in terms of movies, I do have a bit part in The Legend of Baron Toa. You'll see me wrestling in the barbecue scene, but I've done illustrated works for the WWE comics. I've done trading cards for Marvel, so I've illustrated about 300 plus cards for trading cards for Marvel comics, and so pretty much any superhero that you love that you've seen in the movies, I've illustrated at some point. It's pretty crazy. I've done some stuff. I did a children's book based on the life of the High Chief Whanene Peter Maivia. So that's kind of cool as well. And and I've done a whole bunch of, like, every school in New Zealand has my artwork. I've done a number of New Zealand school journals, including Once a Panther, about the Polynesian Panthers, and the book The Dawn Raids, which has been pretty popular when I go visit schools on behalf of Duffy Books.
Which is not bad for a self-taught.
Yeah.
This is one of your legends.
Yeah. Not bad for a Samoan kid from South Auckland. I've done comic conventions in Australia and America, San Diego, New York, Seattle, LA, San Francisco, Dallas. I've traveled a bit for my work, and it's been amazing, as I said, for Samoan kid from South Auckland to be able to have those opportunities and have those opportunities to share my work and share my story around the world.
And what we have in studio, if you can just hold that book up for me to the camera. This is the amalgamation of the both brains coming together of Nafanuatele and the amazing skills of Michel. Look, big up to the local wrestling scene, by the way, because I know. Can we just let people know the moniker that you wrestle under?
So I'm a pro wrestler. I've been wrestling for about 15 years now for Impact Pro Wrestling here in Auckland, and as well as a comic artist. I'm also known as Aiga, The smash mouth Samoan. It may not look like it right now, but when I'm in that wrestling ring, I beat people up, and I'm pretty fierce, and I do often say some bad words in Samoan in the wrestling ring. But yeah,
were they French, Italian?
You need to
but yeah, it's been fun. And I've been New Zealand heavyweight champion. I've been New Zealand tag team champion. And one of those times I was New Zealand tag team champions with the legendary King Haku.
Wow.
So I get to share that honor with one of my heroes, one of my role models, and now he's family. So that's awesome to
the
kind
baddest man in the dressing room.
Yes, in the world,
in
the world.
Don't talk that bad.
in the world.
Yeah. And now let's look at the book. The desired outcome for you guys is to see this accessible to as many Pacific Islander. I mean, of course, it's in Samoan, but I do hope is there another Fijian or Tongan version, or because this is it. We lack resources, and this is just one of the contributions too. So hopefully, we inspire the other languages to come through as well. So for you both, where can people access the material, and what's the plan and hope for your creation? Where would you like to see it?
We would love for more people to have access to not only this story but other stories like this, and we hope that through creating the Ole Ainga Samoa comic series that it inspires so many other Pacific artists, other Pacific story writers to be able to create stories that are their own in all their own languages as well as in English. And Michel will be able to share how you can access them.
So in order, to get a copy of Ole Ainga Samoa, currently they're on. They're available to order on my website, which is www.bloodysamoan.com. So very easy to find. And in terms of creating stories or trying to translate that for other languages, as much as we have a lot of similarities with our other Pacifica brethren, this story is uniquely Samoan, and it's not one of those things where you can easily just go, okay, let's just translate this into Niue, let's translate that into Tongan or Fijian, because there are obviously nuances and intricacies in the Samoan culture which are just for Samoans.
Cannot be seen by the cops.
Yeah. And so we won't we don't have plans to just directly translate that into other languages, but as Nafanuatele said, hopefully this inspires other writers, other artists to look at what is possible and think about telling their own stories in their own languages. And as someone who's done books like Samoan Heroes and Tongan Heroes and Cook Islands Heroes, one of the things that I must admit is that working on Samoan Heroes was a really great experience, because as a Samoan diaspora, born and raised in New Zealand, not only did I get to illustrate the myths and legends of Samoan culture, I got to learn the stories at the same time. So that was a very rewarding and fulfilling project. When I worked on Tongan Heroes and Cook Islands Heroes, there was a bit of disconnect, because those aren't my cultures. So it felt like another job, and so I would not want to try and create a Tongan version of this,
but hopefully hearing your story will aspire.
That's right.
And exactly, that's part of why I do Duffy Books and Homes, is to hopefully inspire aspiring artists or kids to do something and dream big and dream different. But also, as well, with my social media following, I also make myself available for artists who want to get advice, want to get critiques, and I've been able to do Zoom sessions with artists here in New Zealand, Australia and America, Pacifica artists, and kind of lend a helping hand and helping them grow as artists. So if any other aspiring artists are listening or watching, hit me up on social media. I'm more than happy to lend my time to help your dreams in becoming a creative as a career and whatnot. So yeah, definitely hit me up.
For a fee, of course. Lafitaga, Nafanuatele, Lafitaga, Mafaufau, Michel, thank you very much for your time. And and we look forward to reading that. My son is going to love it. And we hope that this session is inspiring, aspiring, and igniting the next more and more generators of our storytellers. So to you both, thank you very much. Manuia Labaleso.
Pawhitai lava mo le avanoa. Ia mai whale aso.
Sorry for you. You are tuning into 531 PI, bringing Pacific people together.
Bringing Pacific people together. 531 PI.